Assassin's Creed 2 has been praised for both its story and gameplay extensively, and many AC fans consider it to be the best game in the entire franchise. So, as someone who never got to play the game until recently, I wanted to give it a no nostalgia review. And my overall impression of the game is that it's really good. The story is absolutely excellent altogether, and it's one of the best I've ever played in a long time. The story is long enough to make the game feel worth the money, but not long enough for it to be bloated. It's always straight to the point. Every mission seems mostly necessary and does not have very much filler. But even though I like the story, that doesn't mean it's free from its problems. The biggest and most notable for me is the pacing. Everything feels like it's been locked behind a wall that can only be passed once you play the main story. The way I play games is that I like to do side content before moving on, but so much of the map is restricted to late gameplay. This also goes for a lot of the tools as well. The pistol that is attached to the hidden blade is only unlocked around sequence 9, and for measure the game is 14 sequences long, with 2 of those coming from paid DLC as well. It feels weird that these important items are locked behind such a long time, and it feels worse than Origin's ability block just because you can't unlock it faster by doing side content. You need to go through the main story. I mean, I understand why it is this way, just because the more powerful stuff needs to be towards the end, but over halfway through the game? Seriously? But other than that, the story is excellent, and one of the best that I've actually played. Another problem that I have is side missions, or the lack thereof. I'm disappointed to say that there are no side missions. Side content? Yes. Side quests? No. Unlike in quite a lot of other AC games, there are no narratively linked side missions for you to take on. There are assassination contracts that do have a bit of story link to them, but it just doesn't feel like a side mission. It doesn't have an interesting story or cool characters. It's just go there, kill some people, or tail this person. And then after that, the contract ends. Yeah, sure, it does its job, but I would have loved for there to be traditional side quests like in Unity Onward. But now some good things about the side content. There are plenty of activities scattered around the world for you to find, from beating up someone's cheating husband to racing a thief. There are tons of these, and they all find a way to make it unique in their own way. And for collectibles, there are actually a few. Feathers, seals, /assassin tombs, codex pages, and more. Over the 6 maps, Florence, Venice, Tuscany, Monteriggioni, Flori, and the mountainside, these are scattered all along the map. To reveal the locations of the tombs and codex pages, you need to climb synchronization points in order to reveal more of the map. Feathers don't show up on the map, and you have to rely solely on your eyes and eagle vision. Unfortunately, there are 100 of these scattered around, so have fun torturing yourself while trying to find the last one. Codex pages are ultimately needed to complete the game fully. Every 4 of these you collect will grant 1 additional health bar via Leonardo da Vinci. These are then used to find the last location in the entire game where the final boss fight takes place. This does again present another problem with the pacing, because as I like to take my time, I got all of the codex pages before the end. But anyone who went straight through the final story and forgot the side content, they will have quite a lot to do before accessing the mission. It would be annoying. Talking about health squares, let's talk about gear and weapons. As you progress through the game, you'll be able to unlock more powerful armor at the blacksmith. These don't do much other than just add additional squares and make you more beefy overall. But for the weapons, you will always have a small and large weapon at your disposal. The small is faster and does less damage, and the large is the inverse. The varying stats on each weapon are deflect, speed, and damage. You can probably guess what speed and damage do, but what deflect does is maximize the window for counter kills. I will get into what these are after this section. You have tons of weapons and tools to choose from. Knives, poison, a pistol, or even just your fists. There are loads of tools that can be used to kill, and in fights, countering will be your best friend. Through the fights, most enemies can block your attacks, so you have to wait for them to attack you. On standard enemies, weapons counters are insta-kills, but for beefier enemies, they just take 1 health off. You will need to utilize a few things to be effective against these enemies. You can use your fists, which instead of being able to counter an enemy, you can disarm them and then insta-kill them. But the problem with this is that it doesn't work all the time. Sometimes it'll just shove you back and stun you if you attempt it. Your final main way to encounter an enemy is with the Hidden Blade. This can one-shot any enemy, regardless of strength, but it comes at a cost. The parry window is extremely tight, and executing it at the wrong time will leave you vulnerable to attack. Now I like this because it has a good balance of risk and reward, but only when it works. Now I'm not sure if this is because of my controller or the game, but it just doesn't seem that responsive when I try to counter with the blade at all. The animation won't even play, so I don't know if it's registering it or if I just did it at a bad time. But normally an animation plays when you fail the counter, so why doesn't one play for this? This is either a responsiveness / delay bug, or I'm just bad at the game, so I hope it's the latter. Another bad thing about combat is that there's never a good reason to use one weapon over another. Don't get me wrong, each weapon has its own unique situational usage, but there really isn't a reason to choose one over the other. When attempting a disarm, it deals a square of damage, almost the same as a normal counter kill. And when countering with a sword or dagger, it still deals the same damage either way. So why is there even a reason to switch weapons? They have the same function and do practically the same thing. So unfortunately, in general, combat just isn't really that great. Getting into it feels more like a chore than anything else. And this may be by design to incentivize stealth gameplay like a real assassin, but I just don't understand why combat in this game is just so not fun. The combat does get way better in the sequels though, probably peaking at around Unity and Syndicate in terms of the old AC. But still in the active combat-ish sections, there exists a bounty system or notoriety system. For committing illegal acts, this will raise the bar. Get it too high and any guard that sees you will attack. To lower this, you'll need to do either of these things: bribe a herald, kill a sponsor, or tear down posters. The fastest way to clear your name is by ripping down 4 posters. All of these have you parkour up to them. So now, let's talk about parkour. Unfortunately, parkour feels pretty jank most of the time. For some reason, the flagship game of the franchise has crap parkour. When climbing a building, Ezio might stop and freeze mid-climb because he just can't make a jump, and you'll have to move around. On one hand, this does make it a lot more engaging because you have to make sure you're not just mindlessly climbing, but it comes at the cost of fluidity. And possibly the best way to show this is when you're trying to get down a building. In other games, you can climb down extremely fast and efficiently, but for some reason in AC2, it's more of a panicked flail. You drop from a ledge and have to press a button to grab another ledge on the way down. It seriously lacks fluidity and makes everything feel slow and just janky. But when parkour needs to feel good, it feels good. Some areas on the map, normally on the sides of buildings, are just so clean and fluid when parkouring. It just makes you feel so good gliding effortlessly over the roofs of Venice. A great display of this is the Assassin's Tomb side objectives. These force you to utilize parkour efficiently and do it in the fastest way possible. All the tombs are meticulously designed for parkour, and it shows. These things shine in how good the parkour is shown in them, and there are unfortunately only 6 of these in the base game, but I wish there were more to truly show off how good the parkour can be and can feel. But this feeling can be ruined so easily. If you so much as turn the corner too slowly when taking a turn, it can send you flying off the building and into the ground. You do not know how aggravating this is when you're seamlessly parkouring and then you yeet yourself off the roof and take damage. It's just, for lack of a better word, enraging, and I utterly hate it. It annoys me to my core, and I cannot fully explain how this makes me feel without dragging this video into the 10-hour mark. Okay, calm down. Well then, moving aside from that mess is the stealth, and it's pretty decent. You can use the tools at your disposal to take out enemies silently. You can poison an enemy and make them attack their friends. A staple of the series is social stealth, where you can blend in with crowds to sneak past guards undetected. Unfortunately, I barely use this. It's not the game's fault, as it's really what it wants you to do, but I just hate the slow pace of waiting in a crowd and walking around with it in the hopes of getting near my target. You can also hire different groups such as thieves to help you in combat or to blend around you. Again, it's not the game's fault that I don't utilize these features, it's purely mine. There are loads of options for how to stealth. Even though there isn't much depth to stealth at all, it still somehow finds a way to be enjoyable and entertaining. I don't know how, it just happens. Don't ask me. Now, very briefly, I do want to touch on the world map and performance. In total, there are 6 maps that I mentioned earlier. In my opinion, there isn't much variation between the 3 largest cities, Venice, Florence, and Florey, but they are all decently large and offer a lot of entertaining side content for the player, despite them being practically the same. And now for the performance. Because the game was built to run on Xbox 360s or PS3s, the game runs extremely well on a base Xbox One. Load times tend to be no longer than 10 seconds, and that's really great considering how much of an impatient person I am. But there is one negative, unfortunately, and that's the crashes. It may be the game itself or the Ezio collection, which I have. And yes, this does also mean Brotherhood and Revelations videos in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. But tangent over, the game crashed on me like 5 or 6 times over the course of a roughly 28-hour playthrough. Now, that isn't that bad, all things considered, but it was still noticeable when one would happen on practically every other sit-down. And as I mentioned in my earlier videos, I am a sucker for random events and world-altering actions. One of these random events is Rodrigo Borgia's messengers. They appear at random and give you the option to chase them down for a large sum of money. You can just be randomly moving around and taking out archers when one of these can appear. It makes it so easy to be sucked into the world and sidetrack you. If a world feels alive and that things are happening without me knowing, it just livens the game world and it just makes it better. Now ending this admittedly short video is my most memorable scene. This comes from the beginning of the game and is possibly one of the most memorable scenes in the entire franchise. Have a look.
It is a good life we lead, brother.
At best, may it never change.
And may it never change us.
I mean, what do I even say about that scene? AC2 is just full of memorable moments, and I just struggled to just choose one to highlight. But that's just the thing with 2's story, it's just so good. I just had to go with the one that had the least spoilers in it. But anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit a like and consider subscribing as it helps me out a lot. And as always, leave your criticisms in the comments as I'm always looking to improve my content for all you lovely folks. But to everyone who made it this far, have a good day.